What I have on the table there is a very rare and old Swiss Army knife, a Wenger Tahara. And I don't know how many people really know about these knives, maybe just the most ardent collectors of old pocket knives or Swiss Army knives. But Wenger, or Wenger if you prefer the German pronunciation, was one of the original producers of the Swiss soldier knife back in the 1890s, originally under the name of Cutlery Suisse. They combined or merged at some point with Paul Bochet and Company, and somewhere along the line Lareche and Company, Lareche AC, was folded in there. But regardless, Wenger was the other Swiss Army knife company, makers of the originals, the genuine Swiss Army knife. And they continued to operate until they were bought by Victorinox in 2005, and then the brand name was discontinued in 2013. So, Wenger is no more. But Wenger Tahara is really not any type of a model or specific model, but it's just a brand name that Wenger used. Wenger used all kinds of brand names apparently and cryptic symbols on their knives, lizards, mountains with three faces, weird stuff like that. And Tahara was just a brand name and was trademarked in 1910. And the story goes that Theodore Wenger, the founder of Wenger, or the owner of Wenger, his wife suggested the name after a Tibetan Buddhist goddess. But this is an old knife. It probably dates from the 30s because it has the red fiber scales. I'm not exactly sure when Wenger moved to plastic scales, but Victorinox moved to Celador scales in 1937. Taharas are pretty easy to identify in that they'll have a tang stamp that says Wenger Tahara, and nothing here on the back. So that's on the main blade and on the small blade as well. Small clip point blade. On this one is tang stamp Wenger Tahara. Now this model is a lot like a Officers and Sports model from Victorinox. It has the main blade and the small blade I just showed you. Also has a can opener. This happens to be the first generation can opener. I know that Wenger used this longer than Victorinox did. Victorinox discontinued this style in 1946. It also has a screwdriver cap lifter. And you can often find these that, well, it's finished the tools. It also has a awl, three-sided awl, rounded, and a 4-turn, not a 5-turn, grooved corkscrew. Nickel silver liners, as I said, brown fiber scales. And you can see that this one has a crack in the scale. The liner's intact, so the knife is sound, but in order to stabilize that scale I did put some epoxy down in that crack and around that rivet. Oftentimes you'll see Wenger Taharas and they won't have a shield. They're a little more common. This is a little rarer because it does have the red shield with the crossbow and the word Swiss. That's the second version emblem that Wenger used on these knives. The first one looked just like this, it just didn't say Swiss. And then there's several other versions. I'll put a graphic in at the end of the video so you can see the progression of the different shields that Wenger used over the years. Just a couple more things about this very old Swiss Army knife. I talked about the brown wood fiber scales, but the other vintage features, of course, would be these exposed rivets, the old style awl that we've looked at, and the first generation can opener. You can find knives that look just like this that have a Wenger Enox tang stamp, not the Wenger Tahara. This is a 93mm knife, not 91 like Victorinox, but they also made a smaller version, an 82mm knife. It was just like this. Some had bails, this one does not. And just for size comparison, here's this knife up against my old model 234 Victorinox from the 40s. And you can see it's just a hair longer. Here it is up against a modern Spartan. It's also 91mm. just a hair longer. Okay, so that's about everything I know about Wenger Taharas. Should you have one, please make a video and share some information on it. There's really not a lot on YouTube about these. If you just have some facts and figures, you want to share those in the comments, I would be highly appreciative of that. A couple things that I'm after are, when did Wenger move away from the wood fiber scales to plastic scales? And what year did they transition away from the old style can opener to the new style, to the one they used for so many years, the lobster claw style? I'm thinking that was in the early 50s. I think I read somewhere, but I can't really verify it, that Victorinox, when they patented their new can opener, the forward action one with the small screwdriver at the front in 1951, that they gave their lobster claw style design to Wenger at that time. But I don't know. All right. Well, I hope you found that informative. And if you haven't seen one of those before, maybe that'll give you some information on Wenger Taharas. Keep an eye open for them. They do come along every once in a while, but not quite as often as the Victorinox, I believe. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you have fun collecting.